Hi, good morning. Lovely day here where I am. Anyway, I hope it's a nice day where you are. Welcome to this, which is the, believe it or not, I think I say that every month, believe it or not, the 25th Firestarter Forum. And today we're going to have a bit of a conversation about controlling the cost of doing business and how to protect yourself from external forces. Interestingly, we had the idea for doing this forum probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and potentially what we thought were external forces 4 or 5 weeks ago were quite a different view of what potentially external forces are today. I heard an anecdote yesterday from a client that they were now working with suppliers who, because of raw material shortages, were giving quotations initially a 24-hour termination. And by the end of the day, because prices were fluctuating so much, they were literally saying you have to make your decision within an hour because prices are going to change so much. So I think this is a bit of an extreme situation, but the broader conversation today about controlling the cost of doing business during times where external forces are really more extreme than many of us have seen in our lifetimes. Interesting topic. So just a quick bit of housekeeping. The plan for today is we're going to start off in a moment with some quick polls. Our main guest speaker today is Granger Forson, and he's going to talk a little bit about lean thinking, which I think is a concept that many people have heard of, but not too many people fully understand the absolute internal dynamics of. We'll then have a breakout session. After that, we'll introduce Dave Harries to introduce our guest of the month, Neil Evans. I won't steal Dave's thunder. And then we'll wrap up with some general feedback and more information about what we're doing next month. So that is the plan. In terms of the Zoom etiquette, so just things you need to know. So most people will have been on these sessions before, but just to cover off some of the things. Best view is the speaker view. You will have been brought on mute. It is best to have your video on, especially during the breakout sessions and the feedback sessions later on. For the breakouts, you don't need to do anything. If you have any questions throughout this, please feel free to put them in the chat. And when we get to the review session later, where we'll do a bit of a panel discussion like we did last month, again, you don't need to do anything. Our tech team will organise all of that as well. So I think without further ado, what we're going to do is we shall move on to our initial polls. We've got 3 quick polls to do. They're pretty straightforward. So on your screen now, any second now, you should see the first poll. And just 4 simple options. How much of a problem have rising costs already been for you and your business? And you can see the options, which range all the way from a serious problem to not a problem at all. So if you can just take a few seconds just to answer this question, we'll give it another minute or so, or not even that long, actually, the speed you're going at. And then perfect, if we just have a quick look at these results. So actually 50% of people have said a moderate problem. 3 people said a serious problem. So I think the underlying point is, and nobody said not a problem. So I guess the underlying point is that so far people have seen a little bit of impact from rising costs. If we now move on to poll 2, which not surprisingly is the next sort of future view of this. So how much of a problem do you anticipate rising costs will become over the coming months? And this is same 4 options again, everything from serious to not a problem at all. And I can already see the results coming in, so I've got a view of what it looks like, and it's probably not too surprising. So if we have a look at these results, So more of an emphasis towards, I guess everybody's just gone up the seriousness scale a little bit. So people are anticipating that this is going to get more impactful in the coming months. And then the final poll is just a bit of an early exploration as to what you think you might do about some of these things. So what steps have you already taken? This one is a multiple choice. So you can pick, I'm now going to define what multiple choice is, which I'm sure everybody knows. You can pick many options, as many options as you want. So I won't read them to you because I think you can all read. I believe there may be an option hiding at the bottom. So if your window is inviting you to scroll down, do. Yeah. Great. Let's have a look at the results. And again, generally, our experience when we do these kind of polls is we get a good blend, a good mix of answers, and it's pretty balanced. Perhaps the one which is lower is we've secured grants and other financial support, which is obviously always an interesting avenue to pursue if you can find the right routes to it. So excellent. So I think that gives us a really good balance and certainly sets the scene for what we're going to talk about today. I always say at this point that this is possibly the one thing we can't do for you, so you may need to close that poll window for yourself if your version of Zoom hasn't automatically done that for you. So now, without further ado, I'm going to move on to introducing Granger Forson. I'll just tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll invite him up onto the screen to get going. So Granger is an engineer at heart, and is always trying to solve fascinating problems. His first job saw him solving a problem for Guinness, moving from hand pour to gas dispense so they could standardize their product delivery anywhere in the world and create the Guinness beer tap. I think that's a claim to fame. For over 25 plus years, he has been working in small, medium and large businesses, helping them develop their people through the use of continuous improvement systems such as Lean, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, Six Sigma, quality management. He trained with Japanese master engineers in the late 90s while working for Industry Forum, and in recent years has spent time in businesses in their operational areas, making companies and their divisions significantly more profitable using 2-second Lean. So lots of interesting things, and he's moved now more into IT, developing a highly successful development process based on Scrum. So we're going to hear about all of these kind of things now. So what I'd like to do is invite Granger onto the screen just for a quick hello. Really good to see you, Granger. You've even got Lean in the background. I'm super impressed. Yeah,
yes,
totally on
that's
brand.
the definitive book.
Excellent, perfect. So without further ado, Granger, I'm just going to hand over to you and invite you to talk us through your presentation. So thank you very much, and see you at the end.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for the invite to come and talk about my passion, which is reducing costs, improving service delivery and improving quality. And the last, I've got to try and in 10 minutes, well, 15, I will try and give you 25 years worth of experience. Okay, so let me give you a little bit more of my background. There's my Guinness beer tap that I invented. But my first taste of Lean, I moved into the beer barrels, and we relayed out a factory that moved from batch to flow, and we increased the throughput by 3 times 2 weeks after the change around. So really started to see Lean. As I said, there's me with the training with the master engineers from Japan. And I love Lean so much, and I've done so much with it in so many companies. I went on a study mission to Japan in 2018, and there's me. And we saw some companies that just blew my mind away in terms of their capability, their productivity, but also the way they involve their people. And I want to start with this saying, okay? If you say to me, it won't work here, you've already lost, okay? Why do I say that? Well, I've done lean in all types of parts of the business. I've worked in all sorts of manufacturing companies, injection molding, assembly, rubber molding. I've seen lean work in hospitals. I've seen it work on the field, picking lettuce leaves. I have personally worked in HR to improve their processes by using lean thinking. I've worked in the project management field. I've worked in IT. Both improving the way that the IT services team works, but also software development, and took Lean and Scrum and developed a very successful process in the business to develop even more. Okay, so if you say it won't work with you, you've lost. Why is it so powerful? Okay, so it's so powerful because of this. Okay, when on my visit to Japan, we saw this site. So this is the Lexus plant, and the bottom white blobs there is plant number 1. Okay, and when they decided to build plant number 2, which is the second blob above there, they set a challenge for themselves, and they challenged themselves to have the same number of cars, but to have half the space, to use half the environmental impact, to have half the setup costs, to have half the robotics capabilities, etc. And they achieved that, as you can see in that picture. And that's because what they had is a business full of problem solvers. So my first challenge to you is, do you have a business full of problem solvers, or do people just do what they're told? Okay, so really think about lean is about building problem solvers. So my passion is 2-second lean. 2-second lean, I'll show you the link at the end, is a book by Paul Akers. And Paul Akers in the 90s started his lean journey, and he condensed and made lean really simple and easy to understand rather than all the jargon and everything else. That doesn't mean the jargon isn't poor. There's some great tools and techniques to help you do it. But this is in 10 minutes. How can you start it and make it happen and build those problem solvers in your business? So what is lean? Let's just go on a little journey. So the history of lean started in a company called Toyota, and it actually started before that in Toyota Loom. So before they started making cars, they're making looms, and they were so successful at making looms that they sold the patent rights to the next most successful company, which was the Pratt brothers in the UK, and hardly even exists anymore. And they used that seed money to start building cars. And so they had a culture already of problem solving and innovation. And then just after the war, Toyota had a really big problem where they run out of money and the banks wanted to foreclose them. So a young engineer was out on the shop floor, and he saw the money that's tied up. So the first thing about lean is the money is tied up in the inventory on your shop floor, but it's also tied up in the productivity and the people's wasted time that's taking place in all of your processes and all your business. Then in the late 80s, lean became a word when the fantastic book Lean Thinking came out, when Womack and Jones created the word and started spreading it, and then lean became a consultant dreaded lead activity. And I say that because even though I have been a consultant, consultants come in and show you what to do and then walk away. Lean, 2-second lean is about how to actually change the culture. And it's spread all around the world. It's spread into all sorts of industries. As I said, I've done it in the construction industry, I've done it in IT, I've done it in manufacturing, I've done it in HR. It can go anywhere in terms of doing things. And 2-second lean, the reason I really like 2-second lean is because it changes the culture in your business. And we're here talking about costs. And Paul says in his book, for 15 years, he only put his prices up twice. How many of us could actually say in 15 years, we only put our prices up twice? So that's why the power of 2-second lean really helps you start on the journey of cost saving. So let's think about some simple principles for you to understand and be able to put in place. So these are the principles. Everyday 3S. If you know anything about a lean, it used to be called 5S, but Paul and his team improved it, made it simpler. We're thinking about flow, we think about value and waste, we think about 2-second improvements, we think about making and sharing videos, and we think about growing our people. I'm going to go through these in a little bit more detail for you, and these are things I want you to talk about in the breakout rooms. So every day, 3S, sweep, sort and standardize. Start organizing your work areas make them more tidy, make them simpler, and every day spend half an hour doing this. I do this myself, I do it on my computer, I do it in my work area. I'm constantly improving through sweep, sort and standardize. So what you're trying to do is make workplace more easy to do and more efficient in terms of the way you organize it. Next, make it flow. Okay, so flow is a really simple concept, but it's actually quite difficult to get our head around at times. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, flow, anytime the work stops, you've tied up the money in your business, you've tied up the efficiency in your people. Okay, so look for where flow stops, and that's where you can see where you can make improvements. And what I've learned over the years, unless you make a physical change in the process or the layout, the flow will not improve. Okay, so you're always looking to make physical changes, either maybe in your IT structure, if you're looking at the way that emails flow through the business, or buy a new system, or change the physical layout on the shop floor, and that will stop flow from stopping again in terms of doing that. And I've got a little video that I'd just like to share with you, and I'll talk over it as we're going through it. So here at the bottom, we've got this thing called one-piece flow. You can see the pink dots going through process 1, 2 and 3, and already they're in the finished goods state. Up the top, we've got batches of 10, so they're still going through process 1. They've just finished process 1 or 10. Already at the bottom there, we're getting very close to completing the first batch. Okay, so when you flow the work through the system, 29 seconds, everything's done and ready for the next batch in terms of moving through. We're still struggling with the 10 up the top. We've just started to go through the process, and we've had to do all that manual extra handling to move all those batches, etc. Now, it doesn't mean, how can I do that? Well, that's the real challenge and the thing, but what I'm trying to say to you is flow is really fundamental if you're really going to think about how you're going to redesign your processes. Next, think about value and waste. Through every process we do, and that's all our own processes as well, we can look at all the time, and we're looking at the value-added time, the non-value-added time, and waste. And the value-added time is the time that changes the nature of the product or the system in line with the customer's requirements. And I can tell you, it is always very, very small. Sometimes it's so infinitesimally small you can't even record it. Okay. Then you have the non-value-added time, the things you have to do. So maybe you have to count the work, and the rest is waste. And lean thinkers focus on the waste. We eliminate the waste in the processes, but we don't spend money on value added. So we don't buy new machinery, we don't buy faster machinery, we don't buy faster computers. We look at the rest of the waste that's in the process, and therefore we free up the time, we free up the inventory. And how do we see the waste? Well, there are 8 of them. Overproduction, overprocessing, motion, waiting, transportation, inventory, defects, and unused people's potential. So these are some statements. So I'm happy to debate these with you in terms of more detail, but go look for them, go research them on the internet, and go find them in your processes. Next, every day make a 2-second improvement. Okay, I'm going to make lean so easy, and this is a statement that Paul makes in his book, going to make it so easy for you that you cannot not do it. All I'm asking you to do every day is make a 2-second improvement. Wow, really easy. Anybody could improve a process, anybody can improve the way they work, anybody can improve their house. Come and have a look at mine. Yeah, every day to make a 2-second improvement. What you need to focus on is what we call fix what bugs you. Okay, things that are annoying you, get in your way, irritate you, fix them. Stop. Get them sorted out, look for those wastes in the process. If you're stuck, look for that flow and start to do that. And the reason we talk about making just 2-second improvements every single day is that compound effect. Imagine if everyone in your business every single day made a 2-second improvement, that compound effect would soon dramatically take off and dramatically save the costs and improve efficiency in your businesses. Then start to share the videos. The powerful thing you have in your hand is your phone. Okay, so start using it. Okay, take little videos of your improvements. Okay, and then share them. Create a business WhatsApp group and start sharing them. Okay, it's like pouring petrol onto a bonfire. People don't get it until they see it. Okay, it is that simple. All right, so the best way to do it is to make videos and to share them across your business, and people will then start to see it, understand it, and start getting on with it. And then the really most important thing for me, which is about growing your people. Now, growing your people, for me, starts in the morning meeting. And the morning meeting is where we all get together and we look at what we need to do today. We look at maybe our customers' satisfaction, but we also start looking at all those improvements we've made, and we also look and talk about the values and the principles in our business. And every day we do that, and we rotate over time who runs those meetings. So we're starting to build the other leaders in our business. Okay, so the morning meeting is really powerful. So hang on a minute, Granger. I'm saying spend half an hour in the morning doing 3Sing and then doing a morning meeting. And if you watch Paul Akers' meetings, they're up to sometimes half an hour to 45 minutes. Wow, all that time we are not doing work. That's not cost saving. But actually, once you get that compound effect of making improvements and growing your people, you'll have so much opportunity of saving, and Paul talks about it, and I can justify it because I've done it in so many environments, is you'll end up doing more in a day than you used to do in a week. Just think about that. Then, in terms of growing your people, you need to coach them, don't tell them. Don't tell them how to improve. Don't tell them what to do. Coach them, guide them in terms of doing it. And the most important thing is demonstrating your values and principles. And how do we do that? On the next slide. It starts with you. Okay, if you want it to change, if you want it to happen in your business, you have to start making those improvements, those 2-second improvements. You have to start looking for that flow and how to make it work. You have to make those videos. Okay, so every day, 3S, make it flow, understand the values and waste, make 2-second improvements, share those videos, and grow your people. Here's a slide for you to be able to catch up. So if you, Paul Akers has put his book, which you can see behind me, he's put his book on an app, and that app is totally free, and you can download it for the Apple one up there on the top, the Android one. And if you really want to talk about lean further in your business, please reach out to me, and I'll happily have a call and come and have a look at your business, and we can talk about what lean really means and what you can do and achieve to it. Okay. So we're going to go into our breakout rooms in a short moment. And these are things I'd like you to really sort of think about and consider, because these are the things that will change the culture in your business and will drive that compound effect of continuous improvement. Okay, it starts with you. If you say it won't work here, you've already lost. Think about how do you start 3Sing in your company every single day to making it easier. Think about where can I see the flow happening and how can I make it flow better through our processes, through our emails, through our data flows, through our customer requests, through anything that happens in the process in our business. Understanding value and waste, get your head around it, start to really think, look for the waste, not increasing the speed of the value adding. Look for those 2-second improvements every single day. Start with yourself, start making those videos, and really focus on growing your people and giving them the ability to become that world of problem solvers. And we think about that original slide where Toyota set a challenge to halve the size of the factory, halve the size of everything they did, and you saw the results. They achieved that. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you've given some food for thought and something to talk about in your breakout rooms.
Brilliant, Granger. Thanks ever so much for that. Always a really fascinating topic and superbly close to my heart. I think the point actually that a lot of people's first introduction to the concept of lean comes from an opinion that it is a manufacturing thing, and actually the making the leap that says, no, actually, any business should be able to challenge itself as to where its inefficiencies are, where the process gaps are, where money is being tied up, I think is a really important thing. A couple of my favourite sayings, one I've stolen for years, is the classic, people are too busy doing it wrong to do it right saying.
Yes.
And the variant on that, which is people are too busy felling trees to sharpen their axe. And I think a lot of what you've talked about here is absolutely linked to that as well. So, and I just love the idea of taking the time every day just to really like pick away at things, that are eating up time and driving inefficiency. So I'm sure if everybody else is like me, they'll have found it really inspiring. So we'll see you back later, Granger, and I know you're going to facilitate one of the breakouts as well. So thank you very much for that. So we'll see you in a bit. I will just set up the breakouts so people know what to expect. So it's relatively familiar to most people. We will put you into a room for about 20 minutes. There will be a facilitator in the room, I hope. If there's not, then somebody needs to volunteer. But the facilitator's role basically is just to make sure everybody has a voice, to make sure that we don't spend 19 of the 20 minutes introducing ourselves. We need to get off introductions and into conversation pretty quickly, and just to keep an eye on time to make sure that we're covering the topic amongst all the participants. So the topic for today, as Granger was implying, is just giving you a chance to think about what lean techniques and activities can you immediately introduce into your business to solve productivity problems. And again, I would approach this with a pretty broad view that anything process-wise in your business that is interfering with productivity, creating waste, tying up money, what can you do to attack those problems? As we've been doing the last couple of times, I think what works really well is if someone in the group can volunteer to be a speaker, or if nobody volunteers, somebody can be nominated, and then we'll bring you back after Dave's session later. We'll do a bit of a panel conversation just to hear what's being talked about in the breakouts. So facilitators, please can you remember to let Matt Wheeler know who your willing volunteers are, so that we can organise that for after the breakouts. You can do that after the breakouts during Dave's slot, but if you could let Matt know, that would be helpful. So without further ado, we shall whiz you into your breakout groups and see you back here in about 20 minutes. So enjoy the conversation and see you in a few minutes. Welcome back. Hope you had a good breakout sessions. In our behind the scenes breakout session, we had an excellent conversation about lean. Admittedly, we were talking about our morning routines, the efficiency of emptying the dishwasher. It's all about how you load it, apparently. And we were also talking in great detail about boiling the kettle whilst you took the dog out, and other such efficiencies that we could build in. So that's how we spent our time. I'm sure your time was far more constructive and interesting. So what we're going to do now, firstly, just a reminder to the facilitators, please, if you haven't done so already, please notify Matt Wheeler about who is going to represent your group in the broader panel feedback session with Dave in a while. So if you can do that imminently, if you haven't already done it, that would be great. What we are going to do now, though, is I'm going to hand you over to Dave Harries, who many of you will know is a podcaster, interviewer extraordinaire. He ran our Resilient Leaders podcast series for us at the end of 2020, still massively worth a listen. If you haven't had a chance to do that yet, some really interesting interviews. So I'm going to hand over to Dave Harries now, who's going to tell us about this month's guest on 5 Minutes With.
Thank you very much, Chris. And this month's 5 Minutes With, we want to welcome Neil Evans onto the forum. Neil is the Managing Director of Capital Energy, where he has been for the past 3.5 years. He's been in the renewables sector for many years and knows a thing or two about costs and potential savings available from renewable technology. So that's what we're going to talk about now. Neil, welcome to 5 Minutes With.
Morning, thank you.
Renewables are clearly a growing part of the domestic sector, but are they growing in the world of business as well?
Yes, yeah, hugely so. Obviously, the green agenda is talked about everywhere at the moment. We had the COP26. It's generally in the news about the whole, the planet and the green agenda, and everybody's talking about what they can do to be a bit more sustainable from a domestic level, but also, like you say, from a business level. Companies are looking at how they can save costs by not being so reliant on the grid from the rising energy costs.
And in terms of, if you're looking at this as you're the finance director of a business, or you're responsible for the money, are there short-term gains? Because I guess the long-term gains are a little bit more obvious, saving on energy costs after you've invested in things and that sort of stuff. But what is there some short-term advantage you can get from renewables?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously with the rising costs at the moment, we're seeing like 50-60% increase in electricity costs. Energy efficiency is key. So, companies can, where they can, save money on heating. And if they've got big, large doors in their warehouse, which are open all day and they've got their blowers going, they can shut the door, make sure the doors are shut, and they're saving that energy in that way. But obviously with solar as well, we're doing a huge amount of solar at the moment for companies. It's very quick to deploy and commission. So companies can look at installing a solar PV system, having that put on their premises within 2 months, and they're already offsetting themselves from pulling energy from the grid at what they could be paying now, anywhere between 20 to 35 pence a kilowatt hour.
And obviously energy is a really hot topic at the moment. Energy costs, clearly in this country and all over the world as well. But with energy prices shooting up, should a small business, for example, let's talk about small businesses because that's perhaps more relevant here. What specific technologies should they be considering now? Looking at.
Yeah, again, mainly probably solar PV would be the main one to look at the moment. Obviously, if they can offset any costs they're having to pull from the grid, so paying, like say, 30 pence a kilowatt hour once they come out of their new contract, by deploying some solar PV on the roof, they could be offsetting, half of what they were pulling from the grid. And the solar, using the solar at the time it's being produced is free energy. So if the company's saving anywhere between 50,000 kilowatt hours a year from pulling off the grid, it's a huge saving for them.
Now, obviously, there's an upfront cost to installing anything, and that includes solar PV. But is there any government help available? Any sort of grants for businesses that could help them with this sort of thing?
Yeah, but in Herefordshire, Gloucester, and Worcestershire, there's the BEEP grant. So they look at solar, but they also look at heating as well. So heat pumps as a low carbon heating, and I believe they do up to 40% of the value. So it's a very, very good saving. So, and we can help with that process. We've done quite a lot of BEEP installations for companies in those three areas. It's also worth chatting to your local Chamber of Commerce as well. They might know some more information on grants available as well.
Yeah, so definitely worth sort of making some inquiries in your local area about Absolutely. That sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So before we finish, Neil, what would be your advice to an SME, or indeed a bigger business for that matter, that is looking to save money and they've got these spiraling energy bills, sort of, looking out into the future, and just give me a few tips. Obviously we've talked about solar PV, you talked about closing the doors in a warehouse, but are there sort of quick things they can do now, apart from those two things, that are going to save them some money and make the future a little bit more bearable for them?
I think it's certainly important to look at the energy costs and potentially look at using an energy broker. They could look at saving the client some big costs in obviously they've got far bigger outreach in what they can look at from an energy cost. Energy costs haven't stopped rising yet, so it's probably the biggest thing that a company could do is to see how they can reduce those on incoming costs, going from what they might be paying 16 pence at the moment kilowatt hour going to 30p a kilowatt hour. So just trying to get that as low as possible by the use of some other renewable technologies alongside it would make a big difference.
Neil, thank you very much. Neil Evans, Managing Director of Caplar Energy, thank you for talking to us, and I'll hand you back to Chris now.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Neil. Thanks very much, Dave. Food for thought, as always, and thought-provoking, I'm sure, for a lot of us. One of the things that struck me as I was listening to that is that I know a lot of businesses, be they smaller businesses or regional operations of larger businesses are in shared workplaces where kind of they have a floor or they have some rooms in a landlord's building. I think that's often quite an interesting one as well, because I think landlords are increasingly having to look at how they provide their fuel, their energy into their buildings. So I think we have a role as influencers there. I can certainly say that the strategy of the landlord, where Firestarter has our main offices, is to make it very cold on a Monday. That's definitely the strategy. So maybe I should be inspired to go and have a conversation. Right, okay. So let's move on. Just a couple of shameless plugs before we go to the panel session. Next month, our forum is going to be quite, I guess, businessy, for want of a better word. And what we're going to do is look at the sometimes happy, sometimes less happy relationship between these three functions in a business. So sales, marketing, and finance, how they work together. And depending on different business sizes, some of these can be quite blurred, some of them can be quite defined, and both of them have got their strengths and their weaknesses. So that's going to be the topic. I think it will be an interesting topic, and we're going to get some voices from those functions. And my personal experience is this is a bit like role playing. So like when you represent a function in a business, you have to say certain things. So finance guys in particular, I don't know if there's any finance guys here, they have a playbook that they use, and salespeople behave in a certain way and marketing people behave in a certain way. So I think it could be an interesting insight into the minds of the other functions and how they all work together. So that's next month's session. The other thing that we are, so good point, the subtle graphic, as much to remind me as anybody else, is that the link for that is in the chat. So clearly we will communicate on it subsequently, but the link for that is also in the chat now. So if you want to be proactive, efficient, lean, just book yourself on right now. Next is the Help to Grow program. So we Firestarter are involved in this program. Fabulous program in the UK at the moment, government funded. I believe this will run for 3 years. Major cohorts. So we're involved at the moment with a cohort of 15 business owners who are going through this 12-week program. If you want more information, just Google Help to Grow. But the key points on the screen here are significant, specifically the fact that it's effectively a £7,500 program for business owners, business leaders, but it is 90% funded by the government, and it is a really strong program. So we will continue to remind people of this, because I think it's a really strong thing to do. So that's that. So now I am going to pass back to Mr. Dave Harries, who has a cohort of his own of people who are going to represent the groups that we were just broken out into, and we'll get a little bit of feedback on what lean meant to them. So over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Chris. It was a very interesting discussion topic, and I certainly in our group it was we had some really good stuff came up. So thank you, guys. I'm going to have to remind you to take yourself off mute when I come to you. But Andy, can we start with you? Could you give us a bit of feedback on what was discussed in your breakout group?
Yeah, sure, Dave. My group was Neil, who you've just seen on the 5-minute talk with you, Peter Brown from Growth Hub, who's unfortunately no longer with us, had to leave, and Daniela from Firestarter. I think there was kind of 3 kind of key things that we touched on. The 2-second improvement daily across the team, and those kind of morning meetings, we all felt that was a massive thing, really. That kind of concept of, incremental improvements, every day make the business 2 seconds better, quicker, if you like. That was something that I think Neil said that his team are sort of really trying to focus in on. The other thing was around suppliers, and we had quite an interesting little discussion around that, about experience. Pete had experience in the consumer goods space where that whole kind of on time in full, just in time concept is very strong. And if you don't deliver that, there's financial penalties. But how having really strong pragmatic relationships with your suppliers really helps that work better. Because obviously one of the things that we also talked about was the complexity in supply chains and the unknown risks in a supply chain, which, you know, in some respects is what the electronics industry has been suffering with the problems around semiconductors. So almost extending your thinking into the supply chain is really important as well. And then the other was around data. So for our business particularly, we've deployed an ERP system in our business. So we're a manufacturing business, a batch manufacturing business. We deployed an ERP system 2 years ago, and we've now got a massive amount of data being centralized in the business. And we had a conversation around just how you make that data flow out of the system efficiently to enable decision making, because that's really the point of having it. As opposed to, you know, spending the proverbial 2 hours trying to build a spreadsheet from a load of stuff you've exported from something. How do you make that flow so it's at the point of use, the point of need, so that you can make effective decisions, basically? So I think
that's
those
really
are
interesting.
the key things.
Yeah, those are very interesting. The data one particularly, that's not something that I thought about, but having worked with a data science company as a client, I know that that's a hugely complex area as well, and with lots of potential. Alicia, hello. We spoke last month, didn't we, Alicia? I think you're Dawn Macabre, I think, aren't you? And nice to have you back on the forum. Tell me what happened in your group and what was discussed.
Thank you. So hello all again. Well, it was really interesting discussion because it was really good mix of different people, self-employed, musicians, sales managers. So really, it was interesting to listen all the opinions. But maybe just I would like to mention that this topic, controlling the cost of doing business, is more important than 1 month ago when we were planning, or you were planning this forum, because of the worldwide situation what's here, because we know the inflation in different countries is so high. So it's really, it's a disaster now, but so the topic is really important. We started with the sentence, and I really like it that every person can start do it right now. It's clear out the desk. Yeah, that's the most important thing, just to start with our own. And COVID crisis also taught us how we can save the timing for traveling when we are self-employed, just to stay at home, and we can do it not just to spend 1 hour traveling to the office and back. So this is also how we can save or avoid the wasting time. And for example, within our company, again, it's traveling, but organized traveling is not just traveling 2 hours or 200 kilometers somewhere, then back just for one meeting. It's just about the better organization. And also what we are using and sharing, we have our WhatsApp group, and we are sharing our successes, photos, videos, and really it's working. And it can somehow do better productivity within our team. So it's really useful. It was really useful to listen all the things we can do, something we are using, and I can confirm, yeah, it works.
Thank you, Alicia. That's really useful. The thing about the WhatsApp group and Granger was saying about sharing videos. I mean, that never occurred to me that you could do that within a business, but of course you can. I mean, it's fantastic. We do it in our personal lives. Why not do it in business? Kate, could I come to you now? If I get you to take yourself off mute, that's brilliant. Obviously, I was in your group, so I have a bit of a clue about what we were talking about. But and I know tidying our desks was something that we all came up with as well. So in common with Alicia. So tell us about the rest of the stuff we discussed.
So yeah, you're right. That was a common theme, and I think sometimes we all beat ourselves up about the fact that we don't have the perfect setup. But let's face it, none of us do. So that we all thought that we could make some changes to our workspace. Interesting. So Peter mentioned the idea of coaching, and So while we're looking at ourselves, the changes we can make, also then looking at the rest of the team and encouraging them to make their 2-minute changes as well, spending 2 minutes. So you're kind of getting that approach permeating through the company. So that was really interesting. We talked also about streamlining communication within businesses. So, for example, again, Peter and for myself at Twist as well, we're often looking for venues. We're looking for great restaurants, hotels, and actually making sure that we're sharing information within the team and doing that efficiently is an easy win from a time-saving point of view. Dave, you mentioned yourself about all the videos that you have produced for one of your clients, and about the fact that the catalogue of all those videos is a bit old and needed sorting, and so that's going to have untold benefits once that catalogue, I imagine, is ship shape, so that was something that you mentioned, which was really interesting to hear about. I suppose from my point of view, Twist is a small company growing, and we're looking at how we can plan in these efficiencies from the start out, rather than looking back and seeing what we can change in retrospect. So we're trying to plan in efficiencies, and one of those is, ironically, is the move for 1 or 2 days at least out to an office away from home, so that we can collaborate, because for our creative thinking, collaboration is key. So that should improve the efficiencies of our creative thinking.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kate. That was a brilliant summary. I know, because I was there in the meeting, and it was a very good summary. Granger, could I bring you in now? You've been listening patiently there. What did you think of some of that feedback we were getting from the breakout groups there?
Yeah, really, really good. Picking up on suppliers, the comment of suppliers part of the process. The key thing about why lean works, we reduce the inventory on the shop floor, we make our processes go faster, is because it actually then starts to throw up the real constraints, what's really going wrong or really happening in the process. And that's the real power, and that's why they invented the word lean. I don't think it's probably the best word, but it's really about getting that constraint and doing that. So, yeah, videos absolutely powerful. In our breakout room, we were actually talking about and explaining you can use videos for training. So, video yourself doing the process, do a screenshot or whatever in terms of your process, and then you use that video to train the next person and ask them to write the procedure, and then you can then see how they've done it.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't write procedures, video yourselves. So videos are a really powerful tool to be able to use. We were discussing those as well in our team in terms of doing that. And thinking about the 2-second improvements and the morning meetings, it's all about growing and developing your people, but doing it at home. I do it at home. It really is, and it's about you demonstrating that you have the commitment to doing it, and being able to get yourself ready and more efficient in terms of ready for the day's work, ready for what needs to take place. So yeah. Brilliant, fantastic comments. Thank you,
Granger. Thank you very much for everything today. I mean, your talk was fascinating, and thank you for the feedback now, and thank you the three of you as well, Alicia, Andy, and Kate, for bringing us the feedback from your group. We're very short of time now, as always, so I'm going to hand you back to Chris, who I think is going to give us the conclusion to this very, very interesting forum. Thank you.
No pressure, Dave. Thanks. The conclusion to this forum, I feel like it's a school experiment, is that be more efficient. If you see an efficiency, fix it. Be more proactive about fixing it, and understand that it is about collaboration and everybody playing their part. And I know Andy, Alicia, and Kate, and I know their businesses, and I know their challenges, and I can absolutely see how this relates to their particular things that are confronting them in their work lives at the moment. So really, really interesting. So Granger, a very inspiring morning. I'll just take this opportunity to say thank you so much to you for all your efforts and for provoking a whole load of thought. And please, we'll send out follow-up materials, and I'm sure this is a conversation that people can explore in great detail for themselves. So all that remains for me to do now is just to remind you to keep coming as we run these forums. We love to hear your ideas. Most of the ideas that we're now using are coming from the audiences that come. Over 250 people have now been to these forums in various different moments in time. We shall keep doing them so long as there is a demand for them. So there is actually appearing in the chat now a little survey, I believe, which will also circulate afterwards. But we need your feedback on good topics to do for the future. So please do be efficient, be lean, complete the survey. Don't make yourself inefficient. One of the things we always say at Firestarter is don't do work twice. We haven't got time to do work twice. So there we go. Right. So I think that's it. I would just like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank the Firestarter marketing team for your excellent work in making this incredibly painless for me to do now. I have minimal preparation to do for this, which is brilliant. So thank you so much to all the Firestarter marketing guys. Thanks, of course, to Granger. Thanks to Dave and Neil, and thanks very much to the technical team, Paddy and Hannah, today for making this run so smoothly. So I wish you all a brilliant day, a brilliant week. Stay safe, keep the faith, and we will see you all presently. Bye for now.